Hello guys, so today we are going to learn about validations, how you can validate user input using the built-in data validator in Fyne. So we can use this simple application here to build upon it. So we're going to build a form inputs and then we will add validation to it. So let us begin creating our form. So we're going to have a username entry, going to get a widget, new entry, and then you're going to have username entry dot set placeholder. You can say username, and then we're going to add a validator. So you're going to say username entry dot validator, and then you're going to say validation dot new. So as far as the validation is concerned, we have new all string, we have new regular expression, and then we have new time for validating time. So in our case, we're going to use a regular expression. And for this username, we're going to only allow the users to enter a username that is at least three characters. So of course, you know where you can get these validators from. Or you can just only get them online. So this is a validation for allowing only values of at least, that is characters of at least three. Of course, this one is for letters. Then we can now add three here so that this allows entry of about three characters. Then you can add your text here and say username must be at least three characters. So this is for the username, and then we can add an error so that the error displays below it. So we're going to say username error, and then we're going to have a widget dot new label. Of course, it's going to be a label so that if the username is not at least three letters, it's going to display this error label, and then the error is going to be hidden by default. So we need a username, and then we can also add a password. So I can just copy that one to save time. Say here password. This is going to be password, and then for the password I want it to be at least 6 characters. Of course, in an actual application you want to use maybe special characters, capital letters. You can always check for the regex online, and then you can have password must be at least 6 characters. You can use that one, and then you can also have that one for phone entry. Phone entry, then we're going to have here phone. Now for the phone, I want it to use the code. Of course, I'm in Kenya, so we normally have a phone number as +254 7. So I want to allow users to only enter in that format. So in this case, for the validators here, we're going to have something like this, so that every phone number must start with 254. Let's start with 254, and then it's going to be followed by 9 digits. Going to be followed by 9 digits. Okay, what am I missing here? Nine digits. Okay, so we can say for the error we can maybe say invalid phone number. So any phone number that doesn't start with 254 and then it doesn't have 9 digits following, it's going to display on error. So these are the username, these are the user entry that we can use to validate them. Now we can start defining our submit button. Just come here and say submit button, and then you're going to say here widgets dot new button. Then here we can say submit, and then of course we're going to have a function there. So we can start defining our function for the submit. So of course the first thing we're going to do is to grab these user entries. So we're going to come here and grab the first one. We can say username. So we're going to have username entry dot text, username entry dot text, and then we're going to also get the phone, and then of course we're going to have here phone entry, and then finally we're going to have the password entry dot text. That's how we're going to grab our details. So what we're going to do for the case of this distribution or this application, we're just going to show a dialog box to display the information. So just going to display the information, and then you can say success. Then in my case we're just going to show this. So I'm going to have FMT. In short, when we submit, I'm going to show the details that the user has entered. Of course you can add more fields like email and many other details, but for this case we're going to only print F. Then I'm going to say user registered, and then I'm going to start displaying those details. We can start with the username, because it's a string, so we're going to do that. And then the second one we have phone, because it's a string, and then you're also going to display the password, and it's also a string. That's why I'm using S. So we're going to start with the username, phone, and the password. Username, phone, and the password. Not enough arguments, yeah, because of course there is a window. What am I missing? Title, parent, yeah, the parent is going to be the window. So I'm going to display the window here. So after we successfully submit, you're going to get the details that the user has already defined. Now we can start adding our validation. Of course we can try and display this before adding our validation so that we see how it's going to look like. So in our case we're going to have the form, and just display it. You can come and say here form, display the form, going to have the form, and then we're going to have a container dot new vbox. In this case I'm going to show the username entry, then the username error. So after each detail. Then we're going to have the phone entry and the phone error. And then we're going to have the password entry and the password error. And then we're going to add it here so you can see how it looks like. And then of course the submit button. Yeah, we can run this so that we see how it looks like. Can run this and see how this looks like. So this is how it looks like. We can try submitting. You can see the username details and so on. Then you start typing. So you want to start adding some real-time validation to this form. So you're going to add that now, the real-time validation, so that as somebody is typing, as the user is typing, we can be able to give real-time feedback. So we are going to come here and disable the submit, because I want submit to be disabled by default, so that if the validation is correct, that is all these fields here, then we can enable it. But if it's not, we're going to disable it. So I'm going to define a function here called validate form. I'm going to say validate form, and then I'm going to define my function here. I'm going to say func, and then I'm going to initially say that to define a new variable here called is valid. Then I'm going to say false, so that the validation is false by default. So we're going to start with the username. I'm going to grab this regex. I'm going to grab this regex, and then I'm going to come here. Then I'm going to say if, then I get regex. It's going to confirm that the username is validated. Okay, if the regex must compile, that means if it's not there, we're going to throw at the error. So I'm going to say dot match string username entry dot text. If we have that, that means there is an error. It means that it does not contain. So if this one is going to check if it contains, if it contains, you say it is true. If it does not contain, so if it's false, that means there is an error, that is the username entry does not match this pattern. Then we are going to say that username error. I'm going to set a text and say username must contain at least 3 characters, and of course we need to show this error dot show. Then after showing that, we have to say that is valid is equal to false. Otherwise we are going to say that everything is valid. That means there was no error, so it's valid is going to be true, and then the username is going to be true, and then the username error dot hide. We're going to hide the error. So that means
key ya library nichukue book fulani.
Nini zishaanza tayari? Zishaanza tayari presentation? Sawa.
Tutachukua ile book nyingine. Iko kweli? Ile STD kitambo.
Sawa. Sorry for that. So if this does not match this pattern, we're going to show this. Otherwise, if it matches, we're going to hide it. So I'm going to copy this. going to be the same for the password as well. It's the password entry, and then this is going to be 6. Let me say password must contain at least 6 characters. Password error. Then we're going to also say password error, at least 6 characters, and then we can get for the phone as well. We can also copy that for the phone, but for the phone we have to come and get this. Let's get this. And then for the phone entry, then must invalid phone number, and just come and say this invalid phone number. So we're going to have a phone error. So after we validated all these, the phone, the username, then eventually we were going to say that everything is valid. So we're going to have to validate, because initially we have said that this button is disabled. So if this valid is true, we're going to say the submit button dot enable. We're going to enable it. Otherwise, the submit button dot is going to be disabled by default. So we have defined our function. Now we want to make sure that it's added to this for real-time communication. So we're going to come here and say username entry.onChange. We're going to define a function. It's going to be that, and then we're going to run the validate form, so that ever with this unchange the username, we're going to run that validation. Then I'm going to do the same to the other. We're going to have the password entry, and then finally the phone entry and change. So we can try running this, that we see if it's been affected. And you can see it's disabled. If we start typing now, everything has been added. At least we see these 3 now. For the valid phone number, it should be +25474. Yeah, everything is. Then we can submit and we have it. But if you do this, if any of them is invalid, it's not going to be validated. So as you can see, the way this form looks like, we can update it. We can just only add a layout. So I have a custom layout for this. We can have layout.go, so that we can be able to properly align it. We can define our basic layout. You can see package utils. Then I'm going to find a type. Of course, this is advanced section of Fyne, whereby you can extend something. So fixed width layout. So we're going to create a layout that's going to make our form to have a fixed width, because currently it's spanning the entire section. So we're going to have width, which is going to be a float of 32. So when you're extending layout, you're going to have the possibility to define your struct for the width, fixed width of course, and then I'm going to define a layout. Then also going to define a min size. So the next thing we're going to define is a layout. So I'm going to say func f, which is going to use the fixed width layout. Then we're going to define a layout function. Of course, all these are available in the docs. Going to have Fyne.canvas objects. Then we define the size, which is going to be Fyne.size. Then for the layout section, we're going to look through any object that has been added to this layout. We're going to look through it to ensure that we apply the new layout to all the objects. I'm going to use range objects that we're going to supply, of course. Then you can say object.resize. We're going to resize that object. Then we're going to have Fyne.new size, f.width, then object.mean size.height. And then we're going to move the object because I want it to be centered at the page. We're going to have Fyne.new position, which is going to say size.width, then we're going to -5.width. Then we divide by 2 because we want it to be centered at the page. Then I'm going to have size.height minus object.insize.height. And of course, you divide by 2 so that it can be centered at the page. Then the last thing we're going to define is the mean size. You can say 5 because we are overwriting the default one. And then I'm going to have fixed width layout. Then we're going to have mean size. Then we're going to have objects. Of course, these are Fyne canvas objects. Fyne.canvas objects. But then we're going to return Fyne.size. Then we're going to define the mean height, which is going to be a float. Initially it's 0. Then we're going to also look through objects. Then we're going to have a range of objects. Then mean height. Going to add the object.mean size.height. And then we're going to return Fyne.new size f.width and then mean height. And then finally we can define our function that's going to use these two or these three. So our function is going to be called new fixed layout center. New fixed layout center. Of course, we're going to have the content, which is going to be a Fyne.canvas object, and then the width is going to be a float of 32. And then it's going to return a Fyne.container. So the layout is going to be equal to the layout that we have defined, fixed width layout with the width of width, and then you're going to return container new, the layout, then content. So this is going to be our layout. Is going to center it, and then we can come back here, and then for this form we're going to say centered form, which is going to be utils dot new fixed width center. We're going to supply the form, the width of 300. Then I'm going to say center form. Then we can run this to make sure that it is working. Yeah, as you can see right now, it's beautifully aligned. Then I can start typing. It should be at least 3 phone number plus 254. Let's paste that. Then we have the passwords, at least 6 characters. And then if it's not 6 characters, it's going to get 2 topics. Yeah, so that's how you can add a validation. Then you can submit, then you get user registered and all the details. So that is how you add validations and real-time validation and user feedback using the validator, built-in Fyne validator. So thank you guys for watching, and see you in the next video.